It's always fabulous to have our guests come back, John Trelevin, because we really don't know how they're reacting to the John Squared interview, do we?
Not really. And Lord knows
Oh,
there's lots to react to.
and today we have the fortunate experience of having John Triple. There's three Johns on the screen, and I think that's going to give enough horsepower to try and explain what chaos is going on in this world. John Tennant, thank you for coming back.
Well, it's always a great pleasure to join you. You and
And
your
the other one?
sidekick there, John Trelevin, need to be congratulated for trying to find a way through all of the maze that there is out there for people who really need to benefit their bottom line by doing a
Well,
lot more exporting and doing it intelligently, reducing the risk to the extent they can, and enjoying being people of the world.
exactly. Well, why don't we start with some of your reactions to some of the stuff that's been going on. We're in the middle of a Davos conference, economic development conference. We're in the middle of a crisis, existential crisis from the U.S. around Greenland, potentially Canada, Venezuela. Give us a sense, if you're a business person and you're looking out, does one stand pat? Do you sense a path out of this insanity? What's going on with China? I could keep going and going. Let's hear your
Well, I
perspective.
certainly feel that what Prime Minister Carney had to say at Davos really captures where we are today and the directions that Canada must take, where the government must lead. But of course, it's doing what it will have to do as best as it possibly can to help the Canadian economy, to help Canadian companies, to make sure that our workforce remains well employed and strong, that Canada has a future. The Prime Minister's remarks are well worth reading, and that's the direction, which essentially is to say there may be powerful countries in the world, or at least they perceive themselves to be, that will go about trying to get what they want. But the fact of the matter is, other middle powers, is what he's calling them, need to work together. Coalition of the willing is a phrase that is used, and which has been applied in a number of cases. If you're looking for a coalition of the willing, of course, it's the Europeans, Canada's part of it, to help with Ukraine and peace there. And of course, the many trade agreements that we have reached, the one for Asia Pacific is a great example, is a case of a coalition of the willing. The United States started out in the negotiations, but Donald Trump decided no. And as soon as he became president the first time, withdrew. But the remainder of the willing stayed together, and we're benefiting from it. In fact, he handed us, as a group, a victory in that case. So there will be more and more of that. The more the pressure builds, presumably, the more it will bring the willing, the others, the middle powers together to try and look out for their joint best interests. And that's what people should be counting on for the future. In the meantime, as I think we spoke about last time I was with you, we have a very significant number of free trade agreements around the world. 51 countries are part of agreements that we are to, but which the United States is not. So we've got a leg up already in that respect. I think there are other reasons and points that should be on Canadian companies' minds as they look internationally, whether for investment or trade. that we could discuss. But there are definitely opportunities, and there are many countries where people are empathetic, sympathetic, realize they're in the same kind of position that Canada is, and they want to work with people who are somewhat like-minded. So we need to capitalize on that sentiment. It's not dollars and cents until you really show you've got the goods to deliver, but the door opens more quickly. And we should be doing all we can to expand those kinds of relationships. That's what the Prime Minister is certainly endorsing in what he said in Davos.
There's a lot of irony in what's going on right now. Not the least of which, Canada, of the middle powers, Canada may be the most trade successful middle power because imports and exports today are roughly half or more than our economy. So we have no choice but to understand the wisdom of the Prime Minister's words and continue to seek markets, retain what we can, and get new markets and new customers where we must. But the other small point, as you know, when Mr. Carney started his prime ministership, one of the first things he did was to put the price tag on interprovincial trade barriers in this country at $250 billion a year. I think what's going on in Davos and elsewhere puts even more emphasis on the wisdom of his decision to, I think, force an internal free trade agreement within Canada. Now, no other middle power, none, has got a new domestic market to offer to their businesses. Only Canada's in that position. So we've got all the free trade agreements that you've mentioned, John, and probably more to come. And I totally agree. We're not the only ones who are a little ticked at what the Americans are doing. And for lots of companies, particularly, John Jurisic, small and medium-sized companies, particularly the tiny companies, which represent like about 90% of Canadian businesses, now, over time, and it's got to happen quickly, they're going to have a domestic market which they've never had before. So we have to approach the situation we're in, I think, with a degree of confidence.
One thing that I think is worth focusing on the part of Canadian companies that seek to succeed in the world is to look at where the fast-growing economies are. And these are economies that, by and large, will be very receptive to Canada. Canada's GDP growth is forecast to be about 1.5%, 1.4%. This year and next year. The United States is similar, around 2%. But there are many very fast-growing countries around the world where certainly it's fairly clear the Prime Minister believes we should be building relationships and opening fresh doors. I mean, take India as an example. India's growth forecast by the World Bank for this year and next year is in the order of 6.2% and 6.5%. That wow. is really something remarkable.
Yes.
You'd know, John Treleaven, that the Philippines is a market to target. Growth is forecast to be over 5%. For this year and next year. In Southeast Asia, you've got Malaysia, roughly 4% growth. Indonesia, where we have a new trade agreement that's now being ratified by Parliament, at 5%. Vietnam at 6% plus this year and next year. You can turn to other parts of the world, Africa. You've got countries like Egypt and Saudi Arabia growing at over 4% this year and next year. The same for Nigeria. Ethiopia is a standout at over 7% this year and next year. So there are lots of growing markets where the US market, whatever access we have to it, and our own market are doing okay, particularly under the circumstances, I would suggest. But there are very enticing markets around the world, developing markets that are taking off, and the Canadian government's willingness to try and within reason, develop stronger, better, more open relationships with those countries. Prime Minister has shown that through his visit to China, and India is clearly another big target to reestablish a solid relationship with. There really are good opportunities. I'd suggest companies simply go Google the World Bank. It has growth projections for countries around the world, and that's part of the input. It's not the only input, but it's part of the input that you need to decide where you might target in terms of developing markets to offset where there may be some trouble or some bumps ahead.
Yeah, we need markets, of course, for products, and of the list, John, of the countries you've listed, and you hit the two at the top, the Philippines and Canada and India. For some of those countries, and certainly those two and many more, we have the huge advantage of a massive diaspora in Canada. You can go to the Philippine-Canada Trade Council in Vancouver if you want to meet Filipino business people. As you know very well, the Hong Kong Canada Business Association is all across the country. The Indian diaspora is all across the country. You don't have to go to India to find out about how to do business there. You can go down the block. This is an advantage that not many countries have. And we need to take, I don't mean in an exploitive sense, but we need to understand the huge advantage that gives us in terms of expanding our markets. But the reverse is also true for those countries in terms of serving the needs of the Canadian marketplace.
So I wish to give you a layup, both of you. Okay, I'm going to give you a layup. I'm a Canadian businessman, and I'm hearing this, and I'm going, wow, this is exciting. Who can help me in Canada to expand my business into those countries? What government organizations exist that can help me with that objective? There you go, guys. I know the answer, but I want you both to explain it to me.
Why don't you lead off, John?
I'll start by saying that a business in Canada that has an interest in going to a new market, obviously the stats matter, and knowing that India is purchasing a range of products that one of which you're producing is important. But you've got to get to customers. And in that regard, the Trade Commissioner Service, provincial governments—
That was the right answer.
have mechanisms that are completely designed for you as a Canadian business to direct in terms of what you need. And that goes from getting a qualified list of customers for your product to seeking qualified business leads. And again, you're in charge as a Canadian exporter if you're looking for an investment or an end user or a distributor. You direct those government resources to locate what you want. The other small point is that as a medium-sized, small Canadian company, working through the network of consulates and embassies around the world, the size of your business doesn't matter, because your potential customer or investee or investment partner will accord you the credibility that's given the Great Seal of Canada, because you've been introduced by a trade commissioner. Or for that matter, the BC office in Guangzhou. I'm not leaving the provinces out of this. That connection matters a lot. Mm-hmm. And of course, you get to the next stage where you're doing some business in Japan, but you'd like to do more, and you'd like to entertain your customers at the ambassador's dining room table, which is the most exclusive dining room in Tokyo that you have access to.
Mm-hmm.
So all the way from market research, sales channel distribution networks, qualified trade leads, competitive intelligence, through to the more networking side of growing a business, thousands of miles from where you live.
Use the Trade Commissioner service.
The facilities
Tennant,
are there, and the provincial governments. Don't get me wrong.
John,
And
what do you
and
think?
as I said earlier, you have in virtually every major community in Canada, you've got diaspora citizens from that country.
John Tennant, your response, please.
Well, I think one point to add is once you get connected into federal and provincial networks, you're going to start hearing about trade missions, trade fairs, other events and activities where the profile of Canada or the Canadian province is going to be raised, where you're going to have a chance to be in the marketplace, have people invited to events that you can get real exposure to. So once you get networked into this, go to these frontline resources, ideally with the help of the local people in British Columbia, the office for the trade people, both federally and provincially, then you're starting to get going. The other part of the equation, too, is to be sure to plug into the Export Development Corporation, EDC, because, and reflecting particularly on some of the fast-growing markets I was just mentioning, EDC provides insurance and financing through your bank that's going to help you avoid losses, may help you provide better financing, trade financing for your goods. EDC has a limited number of people abroad. They work closely with the Trade Commissioner Service and, of course, to the extent asked, to the provinces to make things happen. So there's this sense of creating your network, added to by, as John Trelevin was saying, organizations here in Canada that are focused on those countries where you can meet other business people who are doing it. You can get a tremendous amount of help and approach markets intelligently because you've got better information, confidently because you know where your target is, and think you have a degree of understanding that's going to allow you not to put your foot in your mouth or do things that show that you really are not in
You've
tune
researched.
with what's
Yes.
going on.
John
So-
Tennant, I'd like to just switch gears a little bit. Okay, so thanks
Sure.
to both of you for answering that question. I now know exactly where to go. What is confusing me, however, is the abrupt turn. Maybe I'm being naive, maybe I'm being ignorant. Abrupt turn that we've had with China. We've been trained, public at large, to think that China is not a secure partner, not a trusted partner in trade, in activity. Boom. I get why we have to trade with them. We don't have a choice. Have things that changed that much? What seems like overnight? To John.
Well, before John jumps in, just let me say that there was no choice on the other side as well, because Canada feeds China. The fact that Mr. Xi has put tariffs on food products from Canada makes as much sense as Mr. Trump putting tariffs on products that fill the shelves of Walmart. And part of what the Prime Minister did when he went to China was recognize that he was pushing an open door.
John Tennant, what do you think?
Well, absolutely. I mean, yes, there are reasonable concerns that reasonable people can have about how other countries do things. They probably have concerns about what one or other of their neighbors or workmates do too. But you don't get ahead by creating a confrontation. You look at where your common interests are, and that's where the Prime Minister, I think, is coming from. It's also an underlying fact of life that people that do business together have influence beyond just the business they're doing together. It's people to people business that goes on in the world by and large. And people learn from others. They're interested in how other countries operate. You don't need to lead with your prejudices or your views, politically or otherwise. Business provides an entree to other countries, to other people, and it opens a lot of dialogue that over time is going to help build even stronger relations and respect for each other. So I think the present tone is the right one. Sure, there will be circumstances where we may, as a country, want to step back a little bit. There certainly may be things that we want to suggest could be done better or differently, but that's on the margins.
And in a way, Mr. Carney's very productive trip to Beijing and around the world is a reflection of history. Remember, we didn't even have diplomatic relations with China when we sold them wheat. Why did we sell them wheat? Because the trade commissioner, Bob Godson, based in Hong Kong, who used to go up to Beijing occasionally just to, liaise with the Swiss embassy or something, was traveling through southern China one fall. And he noticed that peasants were stripping the bark off trees. Now, in those days, he couldn't travel without a Chinese communist minder. So he asked his minder what was happening. Oh, they're creating, it's the fall of the year, they stripped the bark and make a very exotic tea. No, Bob Godson thought maybe the Chinese are hungry. And he sent an email to a letter, whatever, to the Canadian Wheat Board. That triggered the first wheat sale to China, long before we recognized them. This was in the late 50s. And to this day, in the early 60s, in the Canadian Embassy in Beijing, the multifunction room, which any Canadian company can use, is called the Alvin Hamilton Room, after the Minister of Agriculture in Diefenbaker's government, who signed the first wheat deal with China. We did that before we recognized them. We did that when Mao was in charge. And we did it because the Chinese people were hungry. That's how international trade works. You find a need and you fulfill it. That doesn't mean that the issues, the human rights issues that we'll run into from time to time aren't important. They certainly are.
So,
but
John,
we knew the Chinese people were hungry.
And of course, Canada was among the first countries to find a formula to begin to establish diplomatic relations with China sometime later, of course.
Yeah.
So, John Tennant, we're getting near the end of our update with you. Would you like to provide a glimpse into the future? What you might think might be happening here over the next 3 to 6 months, considering where we're at, maybe the development of this middle power construct. Perhaps I think Trump pulling back on Greenland today was indicative of some of the messaging he's getting from his other tiers of government, which he likes to ignore. I think maybe they're becoming more influential. What is your sense of what the next little bit in this brand new year looks like?
Well, what we will be watching for in the United States, of course, is this November, there will be congressional elections, Senate and House, across the country. And everybody, I think, believes that this is likely to provide some pushback in terms of some of the more extreme attitudes that the president south of the border has been taking, and that may be helpful. Clearly, the present sentiment is one where congressional figures are beginning to say more. There are also cases before the Supreme Court, not least some of the tariffs, which we may hear about today, tomorrow, but imminently.
Mm-hmm.
And based on the way the hearing went, the betting is that the Supreme Court is not likely to be sympathetic to the justifications that were used, but we will see. So there is some room in the course of this year for a bit of pushback against some of what has been happening, led by President Trump. It would certainly be very, very helpful. And if we can see a little bit more order in the world, a little bit less likelihood of wild things being said or proposed, then maybe we can get down to focusing on building relations and ones that suit us. Of course, we've got the free trade negotiation, whether it will survive or not, and that will be very important. But it will remind us again that we need to make sure that as a country that depends on international trade, we're cultivating as many markets as we possibly can, choosing the best to do so, ones to target, and getting on with it. We won't be left thinking that it's a straight and clear road ahead, even in the best of circumstances, a year or two from now, but hopefully it'll be better. But still, we're going to need those other markets and other countries in which Canadian business will invest and prosper.
That is fantastic. You've provided a fantastic roadmap, both of you have today, and very clear pathway for businesses to take advantage of unexpected opportunities around the world.
John, if I could just add a tiny bit, what I'm looking for is the federal government, the Prime Minister having gone around the world in a week, and everybody watched his every move. And I do believe that his speech in Davos is one that will hang around for a very long time in the history books of this nation. But is for the federal government, to take one of John's points, to design or tweak, strengthen the risk mitigation instruments that the government of Canada has at its disposal, including EDC, the Canadian Commercial Corporation, work with the banks, but really enhance the delivery from the Trade Commissioner's Service in those markets of promise to identify customers, competitive intelligence, access conditions, and get that information to Canadian companies that are interested. This is the time.
Yeah. Thank you both. This is amazing. Generally speaking, an update interview, John Tennant, would be 3-4 months from now. The world would have changed 100 times. So I think we're going to see you a lot sooner. Thank you so much, both, for your insights.